Hello, everyone. Hello, Professor.
Hi there. So I had to get my microphone on there. Hi, Lydia. And hi, everybody. I see Katie's here.
Good evening, Professor.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to hear your voices. Make sure I've got everything ready for us here. I think so. I hope you are all ready for verb tenses. It's gonna get exciting. You see, I've got way too many slides. I think this will be for the next 2 weeks, but we'll see how much we can get done tonight. All right, got a few more people coming in. Jawad's here, Dimitri's here. How you guys?
Hi, how are we doing?
Yeah, pretty good. How you doing?
Great.
Good. Happy to hear it. That's awesome.
Hello, Professor.
Hi, Jawad. How you doing?
Good. How are
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
looking really good, sir.
Oh,
You did like a
hey.
haircut or something like that.
Haircut, yeah. The crazy beard. We had to, finally make it a little less crazy,
Good, good. Looking good. Thank you.
Very kind. Thank you, John. Hey, Barbara.
Hi, teacher.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Excellent. Just like always, we'll wait maybe 2 more minutes, then we'll get started. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a week with no Zoom, still stuff to do if you wanted to practice grammar, but a little, 90 more minutes free last week. So I hope you guys made good use of the time for yourself, whatever you needed to do. And hopefully you have good verb tense questions because we're gonna get into it this week and next week with all the verb tense stuff.
Hello, Professor.
Here, Beatrice. Yeah, I was gonna say we got a few more people coming in. Beatrice is here, Marina's here. How you guys?
We're doing fine. I'm doing fine.
Excellent.
Well, not really.
Ah?
I have been looking for a job because I was laid off and I'm kind of stressed.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Beatrice. That is very stressful. Anything that has to do with work, money, and houses, very stressful for human beings.
Yes. So I'm getting some offers, but finally.
Okay.
But besides that, I'm doing fine.
Okay, well, that's good. Yeah, that is stressful though.
How was your day with your nephews?
Pretty good. They're insane, you know. Like I said, they're 6, 4, and 2 years old, but it was really, really good. They were really good, and it felt good to be able to help my brother and sister-in-law. So that was really good. But you guys know that's a lot of work. One adult and 3 kids. That's crazy.
Well, now you feel what women feel.
I know.
Housewife. It's not
Especially-
easy job, and it's 24
especially-
hours.
I know. Single moms too, especially. I mean, I guess it's true. My dad was in the house, but he didn't really do much. But at least, you know, you can at least you could just like he could kind of pay attention when it's really, yeah, but you're right. Of course, Beatrice, when you're just alone in the house, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. What do you want, Gato?
In our country, Professor, in Afghanistan, most of the family, like about, I can say like about 90% of the family, they have like 8, 9, 10 kids.
It's true. And you tell me, Jawed, but in Afghanistan, usually there's like grandma and grandpa are close by, right? Like there's other family that are close. Is that right or not?
Exactly. When we say like a family, it's started like from grandfather. Even if like a grandfather is alive, that will be also part of the family.
Yep.
Like a grandfather, grandmother, father, wife, husband, or
Yeah.
kids and grandkids all together. Most of the people, they like to live together.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference in US culture, right? Is like the kids
Exactly.
leave home and then, you know, and it's really, and when you don't have help, you don't have support. It's crazy.
That's why they can like they can have more kids because everyone will help the
Yeah.
parents.
Okay, so today we're going
Lots
to
of
continue
babysitting,
talking
right?
about
Yeah.
Lots of babysitting.
tectonics.
Yeah,
As
right.
you know, the Earth's crust consists of
He's talking about plate tectonics. I love it. He's learning about the earthquakes and the volcanoes on the earth. Okay. Well, we'll get started here. I think I said hi to everybody. Dina came in here too, so just saying hi. But yes, it was nice. Lots of work, like you were saying. I know different. How many? You're right. Having 8 or 9 or 10 children. That is a lot of work.
Insane.
Yeah.
Beatrice says, yeah, you kind of need, you know, all the uncles and aunts and grandparents and great grandparents. Otherwise, it's just too much. But yeah. So thank you all. So yeah, today is what? Thursday. Excuse me, March 31st. And here's what we're doing today. I've got a little update for you. You know, I didn't get to see you last week, so I've got some updates. I've got a short warm-up activity, and then it's verb tense time. We're going to talk, like I said, I think you can see how many slides I have. This is way too many. So this is probably for this week and next week, you guys. But we'll at least talk about simple past, present perfect progressive, past perfect, and past perfect progressive. We will talk about all of these verb tenses this week and next week. But here's my update. As I was going to say and saying to Jawed and Beatrice, I did miss you guys last week. Of course, I loved being with my nephews, but I do love talking with you guys about grammar. And because I was in the babysitting world, I did not finish grading all of the grammar writing 2 assignments. And as you know, I'm not going to publish those grades until I finish with everyone. So I did not do that. I apologize. I will have them all graded before we meet next week, though, I promise. I will also, next week, I'm going to present the answer keys like I've done for some of the other lessons. I'm going to show you the answer key for lessons 13 through 16. So all of those verb tense activities that are in Canvas. I think a lot of people have done 13 and 14. Not a lot of people have done 15 and 16. So as I say here, if you can, try to finish those lessons 13, 14, 15, and 16, because I'm going to show the answer keys, give you the answers, and let you guys ask questions about those activities next week. Okay, so that's my short update after not seeing you guys for 2 weeks. So we have class this week, we have a Zoom next week, and then the week after that we spring break, and then we sprint to the finish line, right? We'll see how fast we can go through these verb tenses. And as I've said, I do want to talk about commas and a couple other things at the end of the semester. So that's kind of the plan for the next couple weeks here. Before we start with our lesson for tonight, any questions, ideas, anything? Yes, I see a little yellow hand. That's Barbara, please.
Teacher, so I just tried to do the lesson 16, but we don't have anything. So I couldn't do anything because it's I don't know why it was like.
Is there a computer? It could be
I don't have anything to do.
my mistake. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Fill in the blanks. This quiz is part of an yeah, this is my mistake. Hold on. No wonder no one did it. Thank you. Let me fix this.
Because I was like, oh, why? And I threw on my computer. I was like, no, it's not my computer. I think it's on the system.
No, you got it. No, it's all this organizing all this stuff in Canvas. So I'm just going to move this here right now. You see, we'll talk about articles and stuff like that. Okay, lesson 6. And let me try it now. Lesson 16, excuse me. Thank you, Barbara. And to anybody who had the same problem, I apologize for my mistake. There you go. It's there now. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's probably good too, because that's the past perfect, a lot of past perfect, and even past perfect progressive a little bit there. So it's probably good that we can wait. You could wait to do that until we review some of that this week and next week. Thank you, Barbara. Anybody else, other questions before we get started with the lesson? Let's go. I'm sorry, Vlad. I couldn't hear you, Vlad. Can you say one more time?
Sorry.
I can't hear you. You've got robot voice. You've got computer voice. If you can, Vlad, you can type in the chat maybe, just because the audio is bad. Okay. While Vlad does that though, here's our warm-up to get us thinking about verb tenses. I've got 4 sentences I want you to look at, think about, and here's my question. Correct or incorrect for these 4 sentences? Is the grammar correct and is the meaning correct for these 4 sentences? Number 1, I live in Sacramento for 2 years. Number 2, I have been to Lake Tahoe. Number 3, I have been living in California since 2017 and I live in Japan now. Number 4, when you had called last night, I already went to bed. Lots of different verb tenses. We're going to talk about all of them. So let's just give you a second read through and then we'll see. Remember, the question right now is, are these sentences correct or incorrect as they are written? So first, maybe give me, if you can, give me little yellow thumbs up. So the first one, I live in Sacramento for 2 years. Is this correct, little yellow thumbs up, or incorrect? I live in Sacramento for 2 years. Correct or incorrect?
Thumbs up, it's hard.
Jawed says no. Dimitri says no. Beatrice says yes. Everyone else is doing other homework. Hung is watching videos about plate tectonics, or maybe someone else in the room is. I see a comment in the chat. Let me check, and then I'll tell you the answer here.
No.
And then we'll talk about why. Lydia says no. Excellent. This one is incorrect. I'm going to talk about why. I've got slides for all of these. This first sentence, I live in Sacramento for 2 years. Incorrect. Again, I will tell you why in just a moment. How about number 2? I have been to Lake Tahoe. I have been to Lake Tahoe. Correct or incorrect?
Incorrect. I had.
Katie says no. Nita says no. Mirna says no. Jawed says yes. Barbara says no.
It's incorrect, I think.
This one is correct. This is going to be a fun lesson, you guys. This one is correct.
But we don't have to use in instead of do.
I have been to, well, the preposition, even if you said I have been in Lake Tahoe, the grammar would still be okay. This would just mean I was in the water. If I said to, it means I visited the city, but it's still correct. It's still correct. Again, I will explain everything. This is just a quick check while you warm up. Next one, I have been living in California since 2017, and I live in Japan now. Correct or incorrect? Yes or no?
No.
No. Beatrice says no.
No.
Dimitri says yes. Nita says no.
I think it's correct. I have been living in Gulf since 2017 and now I live in Japan.
Nita says yes. Jawed says yes. Dina says no. Mirna says no. Marina says no, excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
This one is incorrect. 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 And last one. When you had called last night, I already went to bed. Yes or no? Correct or incorrect?
Correct?
Correct.
Incorrect, I think.
Nita says incorrect.
You had called last night. You had called. So how we can use two forms of like verb is also in the second form and have it. So
That's I can hear some of Nita's question, but yeah, that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about the past. Perfect. Marina says no. Katie says no. This one is also incorrect.
Oh my God.
The only correct example is I have been to Lake Tahoe. So let's use these 4 sentences to talk about these verb tenses. And as you know, as I have said in this class, when we talk about verb tenses, we need to talk about 1, how do we make them, right? How do we form them? 2, when do we use them? And number 2, when do we use them is often the most difficult. So I said, I live in Sacramento for 2 years. This is incorrect, right? So why is this incorrect? Can someone explain to me?
because as a past sentence, we need the past verb.
Why should it be the past tense, Nita? How do we know it should be the past
Because for 2 years, I live in Sacramento for 2 years here, so it's telling about the past.
That's right. That's exactly right. Nita is exactly correct. And what I'm going to introduce this week and next week is you're going to see, we're going to call these time words or time adverbs, right? Really, words like yesterday and for and since, these really are adverbs, right? Because they modify the action of the sentence. So this for 2 years, this time adverb is giving me really important meaning, right? So the meaning here for in this case and is now completed. Now we're going to see for this adverb. If you've practiced any of the lessons in Canvas, you've seen for and since, right? These are really important time words. They're really important time adverbs when we talk about these specific verb tenses that we're going to practice this semester, right? In this example, the adverb for is used here to talk about what happened in the past and is now completed, right? So this absolutely is a sentence that should be in the simple past. So what should this be? Instead of the present simple, what should it be?
Past perfect.
Have
Or
lived
present perfect.
Nope, nope, not present. Nope, not present perfect. Again, what am I
lived
saying here?
just
To talk about
the
what
past
happened in the
tense.
past and is, I can make this in regular
I-
ESL textbook.
Just the past. I lived.
That's it. She's on it. Yep, I lived in Sacramento for 2 years. Now here's where this gets tricky, right? So the question is, if I ask you this, if I say to you, oh, I lived in Sacramento for 2 years, do I live in Sacramento right now? If I say
No.
I live, no, that's
No.
the key, right? That's the most important thing to understand about how we use these adverbs of time with the different verb tenses, right? So here, in this simple past tense, I lived in Sacramento for 2 years. We don't know where I live now. We don't know if I lived there 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or 1 week ago. We don't know when I moved. We know two things. I lived in Sacramento in the past and now I don't. And when I lived there, it was for 2 years, right?
Yes.
So this is simple past, things you've already studied in other classes, right? How do we do this? ED, usually. Or irregular verbs. And as you know, there's lots of irregular past tense verbs, but you've probably studied these at another grammar class at ARC or somewhere else, right? This is teaching irregular past tense verbs is like classic ESL. And when that are fully completed in the past, right? I'll make this a different color so it's more clear when you look at it later. There we go. So how? ED or the irregular past, right? There are many irregular past tense verbs. That's how we make it. And when do we do it? Well, we do it when we're talking about things that happened in the past and are completely over. So what I want to do now is, if you can, just type for me. I'm going to duplicate this slide. Give me a past tense, simple past, a sentence with simple past tense and the adverb for. So we're just going to have you practice. I'm going to put it in the chat. I want you to practice. Give me a sentence that uses the adverb for and the simple past tense, and then we'll look at your examples together.
I traveled for 3 hours to get home.
Great. I see people in the chat. I want to see your examples. Good. Joette is a good student, just using the example. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, great. I traveled for 3 hours to get home. I lived in Sacramento for 1 year. I visited, my family for 2 weeks. What would my example be? I studied in grad school for 7 years. Nita says, I walked through the woods. Good. Can you give me a for, Nita? For how long? For an hour? For 2 hours?
Yeah, for 2 hours or.
So we make sure we're practicing those adverbs, right? Those time adverbs. I traveled for 3 hours to get home. I lived in Sacramento for 1 year. I visited my family for 2 weeks. I studied in grad school for 7 years. I walked through the woods for 2 hours, right? Easy, hopefully pretty easy, right? Any questions? Do you want to see another example here? This was my sort of short, quick review for simple past. And now I want to show you the present perfect, because often those are the two that get sort of shown side by side, right? So any questions at all about the simple past tense, ed or irregular, use it to talk about actions that are fully completed in the past and can be used with time words and time adverbs like for, often, a lot of the time, right? I worked for 10 hours. I lived for 2 years. I talked for 5 minutes, whatever it is. Very common, right? Okay. I studied listening for 4 semesters. Thank you, Marina. Barbara, please.
Can I say maybe I don't know. Can I use like I have been in United States for I don't know 10 years?
Now, okay, perfect. Let me.
Professor, can we say like I was talking to her till late night?
Yes. Now again, because this is 310, you know, it's not in the syllabus for us to review too much of the past continuous, right? But absolutely, this is a little like, what's the difference? I talked for 5 minutes. So Nita's question, I'm going to mute you, Nita, just because it's really loud in the background. So Nita's question is, what's the difference between I talked for 5 minutes, I was talking for 5 minutes? First, let me ask, are they both correct?
Both are past sentences.
They're both correct. They're both correct, right? And this is where I think grammar books are really bad because they don't fully explain this. Both of these sentences are correct. They have slightly different meanings to a native speaker. Well, let me say this differently. To a native speaker, they will have a different feeling. And we're going to talk about this, not too much about past, simple past versus past continuous, but much more when we talk about present perfect, which was Barbara's question, where we're going next, and present perfect continuous, right? These continuous tenses are tricky because here's the thing. When we use the continuous, the native speaker will feel the emphasis, right? An emphasis means like the thing that we are putting our attention on is on the action, the verb. When we use the simple past, the simple tense, we are emphasizing the time. Now, this isn't always true, right? But almost, I want you to imagine that if we were talking about emphasis, in the simple past, you're emphasizing the 5 minutes. And in the past continuous, you're emphasizing the action, right? So almost imagine like I talked for 5 minutes. I was talking for 5 minutes. Now, again, like this isn't a perfect explanation, right? I can't explain this perfectly because a little bit, this is like I've said in this class sometimes, you know, when do we use the simple past and when do we use past continuous is a little bit more like art than science, right? Because it's kind of about feeling. For now, 310, the most important thing that I want you to understand in this class is that both of these are correct, right? Both of these are correct, but they will give a native speaker some slightly different feeling, what you're emphasizing when you choose these different verb tenses. And again, we'll see more of this when we look at the difference between present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, because Nita's question keeps coming up over and over again, the difference between the simple and the continuous, even in, you know, past, present, future, all that good stuff. Okay.
Thank you, Professor, for clear my
It's hard, and we'll keep saying it. We'll keep saying it. So this was Barbara's question. Barbara's getting ready to switch us to okay. When can we use the present perfect? So this one, we said, I have been to Lake Tahoe. Now, this is correct, right? This is grammatically correct. And this is the present perfect, right? And how do we make the present perfect? Well, you have auxiliary have, hello, and the past participle, been, right? So in this case, I've got auxiliary verb have, past participle of be is been. I could also say, I have visited Lake Tahoe, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. I can change the verb and still keep the same tense. That's fine. Barbara, what was your question? Because I want to make sure you get it in there again because I wanted to talk about it.
If I include for in a sentence, if I say I have been living in Mexico for 5 months, can I say that?
Now we're talking, right? So I want to show, okay. So I'm going to duplicate that slide. Did I do that? Yes, I did. This is, again, if this is the question, if this is where we're at with the INGs right now, this is great, right? I have lived in Mexico for 3 years. What verb tense here, you guys?
Past, present perfect.
You got it. Present perfect, right? Have lived. Now on the next slide, I'm going to show you how we make this one. What's this one? Have been living.
Present perfect progressive.
You got it. She's on it. That's it. Present perfect progressive, present perfect continuous, right?
Continuous.
But these, so again, Barbara, both of the grammar in these two sentences is absolutely correct for both of them.
Oh, okay.
But they have very different meanings, right? They have very different meanings, right? How can I? Well, let me go back to this one. Let me go back to this one and then come back to your question. So
because the first one I say already live in Mexico.
I'll tell you why. Hold on. So first, I don't want to comment here. First, I want to add another text box to this. So first, let me ask you some questions about I have visited Lake Tahoe. So in this sentence where we said the grammar is correct, I'm going to make it so we can see, excuse me here. Okay, in this sentence, I have visited Lake Tahoe. Do we know when you visited?
No.
In this sentence?
No.
Right.
No.
Do we know if you will ever visit again in the future?
No.
Nope. So we say this because what we're saying is this answers ever questions, right? This is something like, have you ever been to Disneyland? Yes, I have. We don't know when, right? Maybe you went when you were a baby. We don't know. But again, this is the present perfect tense. And so that's how and when, like so many of you have already said, to talk about things that start in the past and continue into the present. So if I went to Lake Tahoe when I was a baby and someone says, oh, have you ever been? Okay, even if it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it's still true now, right? It's still true in this time that, yeah, in this moment, in the present moment, that at some time, I went to this place, right? Okay. Good. Okay, good. I have visited Lake Tahoe. Great. Let's do the same thing. Give me, yeah, no problem. People saying they're coming in. It's good to see you no matter what, no problem. Let's do the same thing. Before we practice with Barbara's question here about the present perfect and the present perfect continuous, give me a present perfect sentence with, I'll choose the verb for you and make it easy. Give me a present perfect with the verb, study.
I have studied hard to learn English.
Perfect. Great. Who else?
Professor, you are asking about the present perfect or past perfect?
Present perfect. We'll talk about past perfect later.
Present.
Yeah, so give me a sentence with study. Give me a sentence with study. I heard Beatrice. I have studied hard to learn English. I started in the past. It's still true now, right?
Last night I studied a novel. It was amazing.
But is this,
No,
what's the problem? What's the problem here, you guys?
That's why I study now.
Is this past,
It's not
simple
the
past?
present. It's not the present perfect.
Simple, this is exactly right, Nita. And again, this is why I was saying, right? This is why I'm going to talk about adverbs so much tonight and next week. Things like last week, yesterday, 2 days ago, for, since. Those are time words that very often are telling you I'm talking about something that is completely finished and done in the past. So last night, simple past, simple past.
Present done in completely.
You could definitely practice using for or since here, right? I have studied English. How about someone finish this for me? There it is.
Oh, ever.
Barbara says it in the chat. I have studied music for 5 months. Good.
Yeah.
I have studied English since I was a child. Anybody else examples?
When we use since, it's not the present perfect continuous.
Well, here's the thing. I want to be careful here. I'm not telling you that we only use for and since with specific verb tenses, right? I'm trying to show you that sometimes these adverbs of time will give you clues about the best verb tense. But I wish it were as simple as, oh, when you use since, you should only use this one verb tense. It's not that simple. It's not that simple, unfortunately. But there is some truth there, right? Like the present perfect, the past perfect, the perfect tenses in general are really good for words like for and since. That's correct. That's correct. But you could also say, right? This was like Nita's kind of example. I studied for 3 hours last night, right? So there's the word for, or, but since, I'm trying to think about a since example.
But that's simple past.
Yeah, but.
My one is I have studied science from for last year for 4 years. Yeah.
Since last year. Yeah, since last year. Yeah, I have studied science since last year. I've studied English since my youngest child became 2 years. I love that one. So more examples of I have studied.
Sir, can we say like I have attended my grammar class every Tuesday, because Tuesday is specific.
Yes. Hold on. Let me. Since my child turned 2 years old. What was your example? Say it again. I have
attended my grammar class every Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say this. If you say that
the Thursday is specific. It's
but if you say that, Jawed, then so when Jawed says I have attended my grammar class every Thursday, does that mean the class is still happening right now or the class is over?
It's over.
No.
No, still happening.
That's the biggest.
That's
the biggest
it's
difference.
Present.
That's
it's
the big
regular.
So right now, this is totally appropriate, Jawed, because it's week 11 and we have 4 more weeks. So if we're still having the class, you could say, oh, I've attended every class, and then the native speaker is going to go, oh, he is still in the class and he attended all of the classes before, right? But again, if the class is over, then you need to say last semester, I attended class every Thursday. Right. And this is again, like some of the examples that we've seen here. This is, and honestly, you guys, this is the difference. The sentences like this is the big difference between the present perfect and the simple past, right? And that's why, again, you're going to hear me say it, it's boring, but look for these time words. Look for things like yesterday, especially if they're very clear about a date or a month or a year, then it's a big clue that it's probably going to be the simple past, right? Not always. And just like I think Dimitri was asking, now for and since, they're not always going to be the perfect tenses, unfortunately, but that's a better clue, right? I have studied since I was a child. I have worked on this for 3 weeks, right? We do hear that very, very often. So that can be a good clue for the present tenses, just like things like 2 years ago, last week, yesterday can be big clues for simple past, right? Can be big clues for simple past. I have studied gastronomy, very nice, for a couple weeks. Perfect. I started a couple weeks ago. I'm still studying now. I've attended my grammar class every Thursday. I started attending sometime in the past. I'm still attending now, right? I've studied English since my youngest child turns 2 years old. When my child turned 2, I started to study, and now I'm still studying, right? That's the meaning we get from this present perfect tense, right? Questions or
present
examples?
perfect,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, present perfect is when we started in the past and still it still happened.
Yep,
happening.
that's, I mean, and we can think about this a lot of different ways, but the basic definition is to talk about things that start in the past and continue into the present. If you see, I think this, you know, when we talk about verb tenses, a lot of ESL textbooks, I think including the one that I've posted here, and remember this stuff is here for you in Professor Jeff's course materials here, all these chapters from the textbook with verb tenses, but they love to put timelines, right? So I'm just going to Google it because it'll be easier than me drawing for you. But when you think about the present perfect, right? Here it is. I have lived here for 2 years. The X is where we start, right? This would be 2 years ago. And in the present moment now, it's still true. So this is like a classic ESL thing to show you a timeline, right? The action started here. It continued over time. And here we are up to the present moment, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can do, again, like if different students, some students love these timelines, other students, it's not very helpful. So, you know, it's up to you if you want to look at them or use them. They're in your textbook, you know, they're in there. Yeah, so that's one way to think about it, right? So when I say starts in the past, continues to the present.
Yeah, when
That's
you're
not bad.
familiar, Professor, when you're familiar with the algebra or mathematics, it's really helpful. Like
With
these lines,
visual representation.
yeah, when like you know about the integer or like with the line, the digit,
Yes.
the minus and the positive and different kind of thing. It's really
Yeah.
helpful. That's why most of the time our teacher in Afghanistan, back in Afghanistan, he like represented this way, and so that's why when you were talking, and I was thinking about that. And the other thing that he says, like in the past perfect continuous tense, and he says in this action that the arrow will jump in the future. That will be the tense of the present perfect continuous tense, right?
Well, let's look at that next. This was Barbara's
Oh.
example, right? That's a
Yeah.
great question. So let's go on. If people do have more questions about present perfect, save it. So continuous or progressive. This was Barbara's question. Or example, I have lived in Mexico for 3 years. I have been living in Mexico for 3 years. Now, here's the same thing I'm going to do. This is why the difference between these two verb tenses is difficult. So I'm going to draw another box here. And I'm going to make sure you can see. In the first one, I have lived in Mexico for 3 years. In this example, is the person still living in Mexico? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Remember, starts in the
Yes.
past, starts in the past, continues into the present. Yep. How about in this one? I have been living in Mexico for 3 years.
Yeah, continuous.
That's right.
That one.
And that's why these two tenses are so difficult, right? Because they are, again, now Jawed is talking about it jumps into the future. I don't know if I've ever heard someone explain it exactly that way, right? But let's see if we can, let's do the same thing for my visual people, right? Timeline. I don't think that it's, well, this is what it's saying here, like this, it kind of leaks into the future.
Yeah, that's why he was saying that like a present perfect start in the past and it will continue to the present, but present perfect continuous tense, it might not like a definitely might jump to the future.
Yeah, see, this is why, well,
that's why, yeah.
But you're right, this is what I mean. So I'm happy that your teacher said might, because and this is exactly like I was saying, you guys, between the simple past and the past continuous, right? I talked for 5 minutes. I was talking for 5 minutes. Right? Like both are correct. It's really, I always think, instead of thinking about it goes into the future a little bit, I think it's really just more about what we are emphasizing, right? What is the most important information in the sentence that we want to give to the listener or to the reader? And that will help us choose the tense, right? Because I always think that the continuous tenses for me, I shouldn't say always in English grammar, you know, we can never say always here, but the continuous tenses emphasize the action, right? The emphasis is on the action that you're doing. And I think in these tenses, it emphasizes more the length of time, especially when we're talking about time. Now, this is not a perfect way to do it, right? Because let me say this, this isn't the only way to think about the difference between these two verb tenses. Because like I said, this is about style a little bit, right? But if you want to emphasize, the other thing that you'll see in your textbook or the pages that I scanned for you is, when you want to explain or emphasize the ongoing nature of the activity, right? So for example, let me duplicate this and then we'll hear some examples and questions. Okay, again, I will just show you examples. I already have talked for 5 minutes. I have already been talking for 5 minutes. To me, again, the situation is still the same. I started to talk 5 minutes ago. I kept talking and I'm still talking now. And I just still think when I hear this type of sentence in English, I'm emphasizing the action. I'm emphasizing the verb. And in this type of sentence, I'm emphasizing the length of time, right? And again, I know that's not like a perfect way to explain this. The difference between these two verb tenses is really tricky. So first, before we practice when to use them, let's just practice making the present perfect continuous. Give me a present perfect continuous. Let's do it really easy. Do living in California. Give me this one.
I have been living in California since 2015.
Perfect. And notice right away, Dimitri, again, his excellent question about, okay, for and since, does that mean perfect? Well, here we've got the perfect tenses, even though it's continuous, absolutely appropriate. I have been living in California since 2015. Somebody else.
I have been living in California for 4 years.
Perfect. Good. Anybody else? I know these are not the most exciting sentences, but it's still good practice. Anybody else?
I have lived in California for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yep. As we were saying, so many, always students are like, Jeff, what, why, how can these both be correct? Yeah, unfortunately, they are. I have been living in California for the last 10 years. Anybody else want to give me one?
I have been living in California from last summer. From last summer.
Now, if you're going to talk about a
Sí.
specific time in the past, then you need since.
Since last summer,
Right?
yeah.
Because and you're going to see this, I've got slides about this. We'll probably have to do it next week, right? But for means length of time. For is how long. Since is going to go back to a specific date in the past, right? So for 2 years, for 2 hours, for 3 days, since October, since last summer, since Wednesday, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, Professor, thank you.
Yeah, that's the
Not
basic.
the exact time or date. Yeah.
That's the basic idea there for and since. And again, you'll get to practice that in Canvas, right? You'll get to practice that in Canvas. Okay, so oh, I've got an example here. This was again. So we said from the first warm up, right, that this one is wrong. I have been living in California since 2017, and I live in Japan now. I said that this one is incorrect. Why is it incorrect based on what we just talked about?
Because it's a continuous and it should be just present perfect. It
That's
should be,
not.
I have lived in California since 2017 and I live in Japan now. I don't know.
If I got you, watch, I'm gonna go. If I say this, I have been living in California since 2017, where do I live right now if I use that verb tense?
In California.
Yes,
California.
that's right. So if I then say, and I live in Japan now, that cannot be correct, right? If I do live in Japan now, I cannot use the present perfect or the present perfect continuous, right? Like I can't use either of those tenses because that would mean started in the past, continued in the past, and is true at least into now. Or if you studied with Jawad's professor or some of those other online examples, maybe even gets into the future a little bit, right? So
yeah, Professor, and this time I'm really sorry for interruption. So how would you express your feeling? Look, just I want to ask you something and hopefully you put it in the sentences. So you're a professor in ARC, right?
Yep.
You are happy for your job and you want to do this job for more, like more 10 years or God gave you long life for 15 or 100 years more.
Inshallah,
how would you,
100.
inshallah,
I don't want 100 more years. I want to rest, though, man. I don't need 100 more.
Inshallah. Yeah, I love that. You learned that. And so how would you put that in sentences? Which tense would you use for that kind of tense? It means you already started this job in ARC. Right now you're doing that job and you're willing to continue this job for the future for at least 4 more years. Which tense would you use for this kind of sentence?
Something. I mean, this is the thing. I could say it in so many different ways, right?
So I see in this case, you add like 2 tenses, but we cannot express this kind of feeling or this kind of action in 1 tense.
I started at ARS. I don't think so.
That's why so right now our teacher was saying that you can express this kind of thing in the perfect continuous tense, like a perfect continuous tense.
Well,
because it started.
Now, I don't want to scare anybody because we'll talk about this after spring break, right? But I could say something like by 2050. Okay, now I'm giving a specific time in the future, right, Joed?
Yeah.
I will have been working at ARC for, what year is it? 30 years.
Yeah.
God willing.
God willing, inshallah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the future perfect continuous, but that is very different than the present perfect continuous, which this very clearly is the future because I've got my auxiliary will, right, Joanne?
Yeah.
And the other thing that we're going to talk about when we talk about the past perfect and the past perfect continuous is here I've got two different times, right? Here I've got one moment in time is 2050, right? And then the other moment in time is that present moment when I'm saying that sentence. So I've got the present and the future. And this is another thing that's really tricky when we're talking about some of these more advanced verb tenses, because some of them are going to require, or the listener, the native speaker will expect that you're talking or comparing two different moments, right? Maybe two moments in the past, maybe a moment in the past and the present, maybe a moment in the present and the future. And that is often why it's so difficult for students to use some of these. But that'd be my short example for your question, Joed.
I see.
Professor, can you say like he wants, I started at ARC since 2019, and I'm hoping to work here for another 20 years or to 2050. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you said the year, I'd say in instead of since, I'd say, or what'd you say, since 2019?
Okay.
I started at
Okay.
ARC in 20, and I hope, what was your example, to be here?
To be here, like, and I hope to keep working here for another 20 years.
Yeah.
So you don't use the since. You have to. I started at ARC in 2019.
Yeah.
So-
Since this is like, again, this is like Dimitri's great question. You can use for and since in the simple past tense. It sometimes is appropriate, but for and since are almost always feel better to native speakers with the perfect tenses. Have worked or have what, right? Have. But here's another thing. Where's this slide I have for you? Maybe it's down here. Sorry, I've got so much stuff for verbs, you guys. You'll see all this later. Don't worry. Okay. Oh, this is like Beatrice's question. And then I'm going to go back to the present perfect continuous. I'm just checking what time, so I respect your time. Oh, good. Okay. This is like Beatrice was asking. Some verbs, though, do not like the perfect tenses, whether that's present perfect or present perfect continuous, because the nature of those verbs, the action, usually does not continue. And that includes things like start, right? Usually you start something once and it's done. You can't say like, oh, I was starting for 3 years. No, like you start and then you're done, right? And some verbs are like that. So for example, I have founded kind of means create or made, right? I have founded my company in 2010. We don't use the present perfect. It doesn't connect to the present moment because it's fully done. The action is done. You start your company one time, right? Same thing. I have started taking classes in 2010. No, you start, right? You just start once and it's done. I have learned the lesson. I have understood. In 2020, I have done my citizenship interview, right? So this is another thing for us to think about and be aware of and practice in some of those lessons in Canvas. This is why verbs are so hard, you guys. Like you learn how to make them. ED, okay, great. Present perfect, have plus past participle, awesome. But then there's all this other stuff, right? Like what's the action that you're trying to describe? And does that action continue, or is it a type of verb that is usually just one and done? And are you going to use adverbs? Are you going to use time adverbs? Are you going to talk about length? Are you going to talk about two different moments in time, right? All of these things affect the way that we understand verb tenses and the meaning that we're getting from them. And you guys know me, right? Like learning the rules is very important, but it's only important because it's going to help you communicate the meaning that you want, right? And that's the hardest part about verbs. Like you could take a multiple choice quiz and get 100% and still not know how to use the verb in a sentence. You know, that's the thing I don't like in a lot of grammar classes. So let's look at this example. Let's go back to this one. I love Joet's question. I love Beatrice's question there too. Let's go back here just to the present perfect progressive. Okay, present perfect continuous. So I have been living in California since 2017, and I live in Japan now. Cannot be correct, right? Because if I live in Japan now, I should not use a verb tense that communicates something that is still true now. So I could say I lived, simple past, in California for 10 years, but now I live in Japan, right? I was living in California for 10 years, but I am living in Japan now. I mean, you could say the same meaning in lots of different ways, right? But what you don't want to do is use a present perfect or present perfect continuous to talk about something that is not true in the present moment, right? Does that make sense why this first sentence is incorrect?
Yes.
Questions about these ones, you guys? Cool. So you practiced it, right? These were some of your great, where was it? These were some of your great sentences for the present perfect progressive, right? I have been living, I have been living. So how do we make this? We make it with have, the auxiliary have, the auxiliary been, and then ing. In grammar, in language power, Professor Ferris calls this the present participle. Some students just call it the ing, whatever, that's fine. Again, present participle is useful for you guys to think about, right? Because sometimes an ing is a gerund, and in that case, it's a noun, right? It's a noun, it's not a present participle. So that's the difference between something like this whatever it is, right? Here, studying is clearly the gerund, right? This is the subject. In fact, this is my subject noun phrase, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here, this is auxiliary have, auxiliary been. And again, we could call this the verb. In this class, we've been saying verb, that's fine. But this is a special type of the verb called the present participle. So just so you see the difference, right? Same spelling, same pronunciation, same everything, but the way we're using it changes the sort of the real part of speech and the sort of part of English grammar that we're looking at. So that's all I mean when I say present participle. I'm trying to show you the difference between that and the gerund, right?
It's not the progressive. If you go back to your previous screen that we were, it's like in present, present participle, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
present part, and it's weird, right? You're right about that, but it's the same thing for this. I was living in California.
Mm-hmm.
I have lived in California. This is in the textbook. Again, I don't make you guys stress too much about this. I see hands and then I'll do it too. But the difference here, right? So with was living, well, was is in the past, but this is still the present participle, right? Because it's ing. This is the form of the verb that we put in ing when it's the verb. And that's different than live, which is the past participle form of the verb live that we use when the verb tense requires the past participle form of the verb. But these are both still auxiliaries.
Okay.
Yeah. Who had their question? Barbara, was it your question or someone else?
No, I already asked.
Okay, cool. We've got 20 minutes or like 18 minutes. Okay, yeah, let me show you one more thing. And then at least hopefully we can go through the more practice next week. Okay, the last one I wanted to show you, this one. This is a slide about the present participle, sometimes called ing. Okay, last example that we looked at. When you had called last night, I already went to bed. Now, I talked about this really fast at the end of Zoom class 2 weeks ago, but this is the past perfect. So this is absolutely correct, but I wanted to show you this. Well, the how this is formed is correct, right? Had called, but I wanted to make sure I explain when, right? When do we use past perfect? To talk about two events, both happened in the past and are completely finished. We use the past perfect to show which happened first. That's when we do this, right? That's what the past perfect is for. So in this example here, when you had called last night, I already went to bed. What happened first? Call or go to bed?
Go to bed.
That's exactly right, Beatrice. So because go to bed is first, we need to use the past perfect in this clause, not in the first one. So here I can say, when you called last night, I had already gone to bed. Now this is correct, right? Because here's had gone. Here, notice I have the simple past, but this verb tense shows us when you called last night, I had already gone to bed. Past perfect shows me went to bed, then you called, right? And I'll show you some more examples, and this is what we'll really get to practice more next week. I think I probably did this 2 weeks ago too, but I want my sister. Yeah, this is the example we did a couple weeks ago. So if I wanted to do, we're going to do the same thing. We're practicing the past perfect. So remember, one of these is going to be in the simple past tense. One is going to be in the past perfect. My sister, well, I could say, we'll make it even easier. Before my sister buy house, she already saved $5,000. What happened first, buy or save?
Save.
So what? So for save, what verb tense should we use? Simple past or past perfect?
Simple past. No,
Past
she
perfect.
already had been sent. She already have saved
That's it.
5,000.
That's it. So before my sister, simple past, bought her house, she had already saved $5,000, right? Simple past, bought, had, saved. And again, to go back to the slide, how do we make past perfect? Had, and then the past participle. So again, let's just do that. I'm going to give you, I'll have you practice sentences in 1 second here. But first, just give me the past perfect form of the verb go. What's go in the past perfect?
Had gone. Gone.
Thank you. Thank you. Had gone. Went is the simple past, right? Went is the simple past. How about know?
Known.
Known.
Yep. How about talk?
Talked.
Good. How about think?
Thought.
Good. And how about oh the word I'm using too many times tonight, study.
Studied.
Good. Good.
Studied.
Don't forget your auxiliary had, right? Don't forget your auxiliary had. So here's another example sentence using some of these verbs. When you called last night, when you, oh, my brain is stopped. My brain is shutting down now. I'm guessing. Someone finish this for me. When you called last night, I had already what? Give me any someone finish.
I had already went to bed.
Went is the simple past. If you want the past participle of go, what is it?
When you came last night, I had already
gone to bed.
Came last night, I had already, what was it, Dimitri?
gone home.
Good.
Right.
When you came last night, I
problem.
had already gone home. Thank you. Good. What else? Someone else. Someone else want to help with an example?
I have
When you
in-
said me about this book, I had already bought.
Oh, nice, nice. So good. I just put a say into the. I
Mhm.
changed say to tell. So when you told me about this book, I had
Okay,
already
tell
bought
me.
it. Perfect. Good. Yeah.
I
Good.
have a question about the
Please.
study. Is not had studied past?
Yep. Thank you. Teacher brain. Teacher brain. Past participle. You're right. Thank you. It should be, all of these should be the past participle. That's exactly correct. And again, the good news, I think I said this last week too, right? When my sister called, third person, singular, plural, it doesn't matter, right? It's going to be, well, let's do it. Let's change it. When I called last night, my sister had already. We don't need to say my sister had, or you know what I mean? We don't need to add a plural third person S. We don't need to worry about the subject. Third person, first person, singular, plural doesn't matter. That's the good news about this verb. Like I said 2 weeks ago, right? It's had, auxiliary had, always had, H-A-D in the past, and then the past participle. That's how to make it, right? The challenge is when do we use it? So if we go into, perfect, I've got 10 minutes. So I did want to show you all of the lessons that are in Canvas now are about verb tense practice. So if you go to the course materials page, maybe you've already gone there, and then download this chapter from Grammar and Beyond here, you'll get even more detail about past perfect. And I think it starts here on, there's present perfect progressive. It starts on page, there it is. It starts on page 46 of this PDF, right? So this is what's going to help you practice. This is in Canvas, this activity. But as you see up here, forming the simple past, and then here's the rule, right? It says use the past perfect with the simple past to describe an event in a time period that leads up to another past event or time period. Use the simple past to describe the later event or time period. So she learned that she had been part of a secret study. Happened first, learned, happened first, had been, happened after that, she learned. The twins discovered that they had both studied psychology, right? And then they give you some rules and explanations for some of these prepositions and time words, right? Before, by, until. So their mother had known about the study before her death. Now, interesting example here, and I've got slides for this next week. It doesn't always have to be a clause, like a full clause when you're including a secondary event. So before the storm, right? No clause here. I don't have a subject. I don't have the simple past verb tense, but I've got some kind of, I've got a time word in this case, right? A preposition. It can't be an adverb because this isn't a clause, but I've got before the storm, I had already bought sandbags, right? So I'm imagining the storm was going to come. I go to the store, I buy sandbags. So you don't always have to have a clause. It could just be a phrase, right? I had, I had studied English before university, right? And so these pages in the PDF are going to give you good examples and good practice wherever my PDF went here. Let me find it. There it is. These are going to give you good examples and good practice, right? So most of the activities that are in Canvas for you to do are these examples from the book. I just have you practice it on the computer instead of, you know, printing this or doing anything on paper. Okay, so if you have questions about lessons 14, 15, and 16, start on page 48 of this PDF, right? That's why it's here in Canvas for you. Review the examples, and that can really help you as you go through the lessons in Canvas, okay? Yes, questions, examples. We've got a few more minutes. We got plenty of time. So what are people's questions? I know we went through a lot of stuff really fast there, and we get to practice next week and then after we come back from spring break too. So questions. Too many verbs. It's too much, right? Yeah, tell me.
I have a sentence, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
For
perfect.
example, yeah, I'm not sure. While you didn't come, it never happened before.
What?
While you didn't come.
How correct this sentence, or
Yeah,
it's two different sentence?
Well, while you didn't come, it never happened before. Can you say more? I'm unsure what the meaning you want to say is. What are the two things that happened? Come, like arrive, like come to a party or come to an event or something?
Those two sentences don't make sense.
It's weird. Okay.
He's thinking.
No, it's weird. Okay, it doesn't make sense.
You could say it had never, could be, it could just be thinking in first language, yeah. You did not arrive, you did not visit me this year. And that this is kind of the feeling I get from it, Dimitri, you tell me. This is grammatically correct. The meaning is still kind of weird, but you did not visit me this year. And that had never happened before, right? So, right? Now, again, this is a more advanced meaning, but we use the past perfect here because starting in the past, I'm thinking about a time in the past, maybe from the time I was a baby, you always came to see me, right? In 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. But when you did not visit in 2022, more recently, that was the first time. So you could say something like this. Is that the meaning you're kind of thinking about, Dimitri, a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, never and ever are really interesting words for the perfect tenses, for sure. Because like when Dimitri says never, you definitely got me thinking about this, right? So yeah, what else you got? This had never happened before. When what could we say? When she was elected president, it had never happened. The country had never elected a woman. Something like this?
Yes.
Something like this. When she won the presidency, the country had never elected a woman, or before might be even more clear, right? Simple past, won. Before she won the presidency, the country had never elected a woman, had elected. And then we get our time word in there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. These are more advanced instructions, but I like it. We could do the same thing in a positive sentence, right? I had always wanted to travel to China when I finally went last year. Something like this. I had always wanted to travel to China when I finally went last year, or before I finally went last year. So I understand went last year, I did go, but even before that, I had always wanted to, right? Simple past, past perfect. And again, yeah. Does this make a little more? I think it's just time to practice. So if you haven't done those lessons in Canvas, perfect time. We'll practice much more next week too. But does this make if these sentences make some sense to you, or at least you understand the meaning, you're getting there, right? The hard part is, how do we use it when we're speaking and writing? That's the more difficult part. But do these make sense? Any questions that I can answer in the last, one more minute? Any questions at all?
No, for me, Professor.
Ya basta. 5 verb tenses in an hour and a half is enough. Yeah. I will please again go through Canvas. I will grade grammar writing 2 before I see you next week. Email me, text me, and let me know if you need anything. But just take your time, do as much of this as you can, and then you'll get much more practice with actually using the verb tenses. And of course, you can go back. You can go back and watch the Zoom recording just for more examples again. So, all right, I'm going to stop the recording. Then I'll say goodbye to you all.